Let's do some tree diagram stuff. Tree, you have to forgive some of the writing here. Tree diagrams. So first of all, how do we construct our tree diagrams? Most of you should find this pretty simple because we've done this already. But we can use these tree diagrams to represent the work we do with probability. So let's say we flip a coin. When we flip a coin, we can either get heads or tails. So there are two possible outcomes, heads or tails. So for our first branch on this tree, we can represent these two outcomes as either getting heads or tails. Two outcomes. Now, because there are two possible outcomes and only one of those is going to occur, we have 1 out of 2 chance of either of those things occurring. So there's a 1 out of 2 chance we get heads and a 1 out of 2 chance we get tails. Let's say now, though, I flip a second coin after I flip the first one. So again, with this second coin, I can get heads or tails. Now we use this tree to represent all the different possible things that could happen. So for the first coin I flipped, I could get heads, and then I flip my second coin, I could get heads again, or I could get tails. Now this first coin I flipped, I could have got tails. So then I flip the second coin, I could get heads, or I could get tails. So what's important to remember here is that this first branch here represents one of the events. This is our first event. And in this case, this is us flipping coin number 1. After this first event, each of these two outcomes, either heads or tails, then has its two branches. So this is representing our second event, which in this case is flipping a second coin. So the ends of these branches now shows how many different possible outcomes there are. Now, if we look at these outcomes, what this means is in terms of our events, so event 1, flipping coin number 1, we could have got heads, and then with coin 2, so this is our event 2, we could have got heads again. So this means we could have heads and heads. Okay, let's look at one of the other possibilities here. For our first coin, I could get heads, and then for the second coin, I could get tails. So this is another possible outcome. Heads, and then tails. Okay, let's look at these other things that could have happened. I could have got tails for the first coin, and then heads for the second coin. So tails and heads. And then the next one is I could have got tails on the first coin, and then tails again on the second coin. So these here are our possible outcomes. Now you notice there are 4 possible outcomes, and we only get one of them. So for each of these, there is a 1 in 4 chance of them happening. So there we are. But what else you'll notice is that these two outcomes here are sort of similar. They're 1 heads and 1 tails. So we could choose to group these together if we wanted. We could say one outcome is 2 heads, another outcome is 2 tails, a third outcome is 1 heads and 1 tails. So if we've got, out of all these separate outcomes, some that are the same, we can just add their fractions together. And that would mean 2 over 4. So 2 out of 4 chance that we get a heads and a tails. There's a 1 out of 4 chance we get a heads and a heads, and a 1 out of 4 chance down here where we get tails or tails. So I hope that just shows you how to draw a tree diagram and how to assign some probabilities. I'll go into more detail in another video.